Today's lesson is on Henry Ford, who's known as a captain or leader of the automobile industry. Most people think that he's a leader of the automobile industry because they believe that he in fact invented the automobile. He did not. Other people say that he invented the assembly line. He did not. What he was able to do was find a way to produce cars very quickly using the assembly line by adding a conveyor belt to it. We're going to look at all this and more as we learn about Henry Ford and the automobile industry. The picture that you see coming on the screen right now is of Henry Ford with his very famous Model T. More on that later. The actual inventor of the car is credited to be Carl Benz of Mercedes-Benz with his car there. The inventor of the assembly line is probably Samuel Colt, who used it with the gun industry. The guy that's pictured here, Ransom Olds of the Oldsmobile family, is the one who likely invented the process of using the assembly line with the car. What Henry Ford did was add the conveyor belt piece to it. You'll see that in a minute from a very famous clip from a TV show called I Love Lucy, and it shows here.
All right, girls, listen carefully. This is the wrapping department.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the candy will pass by on this conveyor belt and continue into the next room where the girls will pack it. Now, your job is to take each piece of candy and wrap it in one of these papers and then put it back on the belt. You understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Let her roll! Let her roll! Well, wait here. Somebody's asleep at the switch.
What are you doing up here? I thought you were downstairs boxing chocolates. Oh, they kicked me out of there fast. Why? I kept pinching them to see what kind they were. This is the fourth department I've been in. Oh, I didn't do so well either.
All right, girls. Now, this is your last chance. If one piece of candy gets past you and into the packing room unwrapped, you're fired.
Yes, ma'am.
Let her roll!
Oh, this is easier. Yeah, we can handle this okay. Listen, Ethel, I think this... I think we're fighting a losing game. Here she comes.
Fine, you're doing splendidly. Speed it up a little!
So thanks to Henry Ford and the assembly line, we now can make cars much faster, like you saw on the conveyor belt with those chocolates. And thanks to all those automobiles, we now have things like traffic jams, which we're about to see here. Now these are not all Fords, as you can imagine, but there's lots and lots of cars jammed up here. And this is the single worst traffic jam scene that I've ever seen. I mean, nobody is going anywhere except for the green car. Watch it, top of the screen. It's going to get so fed up, it's going to throw it in reverse and head out. Awkward silence. We also have commercials like this thanks to Ford and the automobile industry.
Hold on to the moment when there's something brewing in the sky.
And all across America, we are a car-loving nation. Most specifically in the state of Michigan, because it's in Michigan where Henry Ford founds the automobile industry as we know it in the city of Detroit, which also becomes known as Motor City. Let's take a look at Ford and Ford Field. Sorry, Tiger fans, for being swept, but a lot of things in Michigan are named after Henry Ford.
Detroit, 1908. Henry Ford, maverick, visionary, obsessive. A man with a bad reputation. Recently let go by the company that will soon become Cadillac, he launches his third attempt to build cars. But these will be different. There are only 8,000 cars in the U.S. Expensive toys for the wealthy, like owning a private jet today.
There were dozens and dozens of small companies building cars that were essentially playthings for the rich. They were notoriously unreliable. They were not standardized. They were hand-built, essentially. And if you were going to own a car, you practically had to have your own mechanic on staff as well to keep the thing running.
Nobody's figured out how to make a car that's affordable and low cost. Henry Ford is about to change that. It won't just change how cars are made. It will change how everything is made. Detroit, 1913. Henry Ford isn't just making a revolutionary car. He's making it in a revolutionary way. The production line. High volume, low cost. Products identical.
The man who places the part doesn't fasten it. The man who puts in a bolt doesn't put on the nut. And the man who puts on the nut doesn't tighten it.
Work is standardized, simplified. It's a more efficient way to make everything. Mass production sweeps the nation, and it changes the world.
To be an assembly line worker, you did not have to have a high degree of skill. You didn't have to be a card-carrying machinist or whatever it might be. All you had to do was to learn how to turn the same wrench on the same nut 5,000 times a day, and that was your job.
Prices plummet. In 1913, a Model T cost 2 years' wages. By 1924, it's just 3 months.
The Model T, without question, is one of the single objects in the history of America that changed America. What Henry Ford developed was the car for the common man.
The impact of this little car is massive. 300,000 sold in 1913. By 1924, there's a new Model T every 24 seconds.
Suddenly, this form of transportation, which was entirely new, was something that people could actually engage in. They could afford it. It wasn't like a spaceship where there are only several of them and there are millions and millions of dollars.
Washington State, 1915. The Model T's success is creating a nation of student drivers. Roscoe Scheller used to be a dairy farmer. He's about to start a new job. Car salesman. The pay is fantastic. The only problem is, he can't drive.
You're not riding a horse, just take it easy.
His boss offers to teach him the morning of his first day at work. It's not long before Roscoe has his first customers. Luckily, there's a manual called How to Drive an Automobile.
Cranking is an art that's essential for the new motorist to become proficient in. It is always a good plan, undoubtedly a good idea to learn to steer first. Steering is a very simple manipulation. An excellent plan for the beginning is to find a long, straight, and slightly downhill road, free of other traffic.
Roscoe takes his customers for a test drive. Most are used to a horse and buggy.
The majority of first-time drivers completely ignored corners. Instead of using a brake, they shouted "whoa" at the top of their lung power. Often they demand I teach his wife and every kid old enough to reach the pedals.
America's love affair, the automobile, has begun.
The American has a great sense of freedom and not being tied to one place. If I don't like it here, I'm going to pack everything in the car. They don't require anybody's permission. They don't have to sign out. And the automobile really enables that.
When I came to America, the first thing I wanted to think about, how can I get hold of a car? I had a love affair with cars from the very beginning, because this method of movement that can enable you to see vast expanse of space is something I never experienced in China. Never. This is something I wanted to do almost more than anything else, is to buy a car.
Roscoe Scheller is one of America's pioneer car dealers. Today, America drives 2.7 trillion miles a year. Vehicles that are descendants of Henry Ford's Model T.
So as stated before, Henry Ford is not the inventor of the automobile. He's not even the inventor of the assembly line. What he did was perfect the assembly line by adding the conveyor belt, like you saw in the I Love Lucy clip. And he wants to be remembered by the quote that you see there. I invented nothing new. I simply assembled the discoveries of other men behind whom were centuries of work. Progress happens when all the factors that make for it are ready, and then it is inevitable. Henry Ford. Thank you, and good night.